Hi, I'm Bran, and I love Hallmark movies.
I'm Dan, and I despise Hallmark movies.
I'm Dan Jeannotte. I make Hallmark movies, and I'm going to change Dan's mind about them.
And this is the
Deck the Hallmark
Podcast.
Deck the Hallmark, it's his podcast.
Brandon and friends host this podcast. We hope you like this jolly podcast.
Wow.
Boy, a couple of things I feel really good about, Brandon.
Two Dans for the price of one?
Two Dans. That was not even on the list.
And if you want to get weird with it, I could be Brandan.
You could be
Instead
Brandan.
of
That would be getting weird with it. One, we've been saying Dan Jeannotte's last name right this whole time. That is great news for us. We've done it.
Yeah.
Maybe not you.
No, I still
You probably butchered it.
Mess it up now.
But
don't you worry.
We've been saying, because he said it himself, and that made me feel better. And then two, I knew that eventually someone was going to come along and convince me that Hallmark movies were the real deal. And it sounds like Dan Jeannotte's
Is up for the challenge.
Is up for the challenge. And to be fair, I've liked some of recent. So I could be convinced.
Hey.
We got Pride and Prejudice coming out this weekend. So
Sense and Sensibility. I know that you think all Jane Austen novels are the same because you hate women, but I
hate most women. That
Dan's
put it
gonna
on
be
the
like,
record.
I can't be on this show.
put it on the record.
Dan, thank you for joining us while you're still here.
Thank you so much.
We're
Dan.
so excited to have you. Are you currently in Canada?
Thank
I know
you.
you're Canadian. Are you
I
currently
am.
in Canada?
I am Canadian, and I'm currently in Canada being a good Canadian. Yep.
Yeah, you are.
Congratulations.
Good. So kind, those Canadians.
We love to start with the basics of the actor, go back to their childhood and whatnot. I do want to get this out of the way. On your IMDb, it does, under the Did You Know section, it says your trademark is your dark green eyes.
Wow. Man, I can see him.
Can
Yeah.
I just really quickly,
You didn't write that?
is that,
I did not write that. I did not write that. I wouldn't have said I had dark green eyes or a
yeah,
trademark.
get real close right now for the folks watching on Philo. Yeah,
Man, they look great.
that's a
Yeah,
trademark.
Lighter green?
I think it's lighter. It's
Yeah.
lighter
Okay, but
green.
you said you wanted to go back to the beginning, so you want to know, like, how did I end up genetically with green eyes? Is that what you're
Correct.
asking?
I would love
Yeah.
for you to give me
That's right.
your
Yeah.
parents' eye color,
Yes,
if you don't
both.
mind, and how we.
If we could get the full Punnett square, that would be fantastic.
Really helpful.
That would be awesome.
No, but yeah, let's go. Like, where'd you grow up, and what were you like as a kid? Were you a kid that was always putting on for the people around you, or did that kind of come later in life when you found out about movies and whatnot?
Yeah, well, I was born and raised in Montreal, and when I was a kid, I mean, maybe I was a little bit of a ham, but not the kind of kid you'd watch and be like, oh, that kid is dramatic. That kid's clearly headed straight for the theater. Not exactly like that, But I was definitely. I've been told it's definitely a smart ass growing up,
Mhm.
so that had something to do with it. And
Did
I
that
was
get
just
you
really
into trouble?
Yeah, my parents are pretty chill. They're pretty chill, and so
But a smart ass in Canadian is just like, what is that? What's the translation down here? Just like
saints. I
yeah, a
believe. Saints.
joy to teach
Yes.
down here. Is that what he is?
you think? Yeah. Okay, I was a smart ass by our standards,
Okay.
But I just always I don't know. I always loved stories. I read a lot as a kid, as a big reader, and I think that kind of love of books and stories eventually turned into a love of film. Like as I became a teenager, I became kind of obsessed with movies, and that kind of helped pave my way towards working in that field, I guess.
Do you remember the movie that kind of unlocked like your love of cinema? Is there a moment you can think of as a teenager where you were like, I remember seeing Jurassic Park when I was like 11 years old, and I was like, this movie freaking rules. Like, how did they do this? How did they make, like, do you have a movie like that?
Well, it's funny that you say Jurassic Park, because I started when I was a teenager. I started going to the movies all the time and collecting tickets, my movie ticket stubs. And the first one I have was Jurassic Park.
Wow.
So that might have been one where I was like, this is going to become like I just, yeah, this is going to be a thing. I'm going to jump into this world, And I was for a while, I was going to movies like multiple times a week, So I collected huge stacks of ticket stubs, but I think that the movies, what I got out of them changed as I got older. I remember the movies that I watched as a kid over and over again that really sparked me, like Labyrinth and the Princess Bride and the Dark Crystal, these kind of fantasy movies, that was also a lot of what I read was fantasy books. And then there were like these crazy dumb comedies that I remember my brother and I watching over and over again, like Ace Ventura,
of course,
or like this movie called UHF.
Oh, Weird Al, where he's got the TV station. Are you kidding me?
Yes.
Dan, are we best friends? This is fantastic.
I think we are.
Dude, I loved UHF. Dude, the you get to drink from the fire hose line. I say that line all the time. Exactly. He just throws the whole thing on him. It's fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. They don't make movies like that anymore.
They don't.
In this movie, you see like a kid getting like hit full force with a water from a fire hose and getting knocked backwards. It's hilarious and also very dangerous.
Of course, we would never these days, but back then we didn't know any better. They're throwing the Badgers out the window. We'll have a separate podcast, you and I, with the UHF. Don't worry.
Okay.
It's a rewatch podcast every week. You just watch that movie.
Dan and Dan watch UHF. Sells itself
over and over again.
Over and over again. Yeah. I love that.
It's like that kind of gonzo comedy really did it for me, And so as I got older, I kind of started getting into. I would kind of go see whatever was playing at the movie theaters, and then as I got kind of later into my teens, I started getting into comedy, like sketch comedy shows on TV, British stuff, weird kind of, loopy sketch comedy. And that kind of culminated. I ended up becoming friends with a guy in college who told me he was starting an improv troupe. Shout out to my boy Matt Goldberg, and he was like, I think you'd be good at it, and so I joined this improv troupe, never having done it before, and it just, that really unlocked something in me. Like the first time I did a show in front of an audience, this live audience, and I'm just making stuff up. Me and my teammates are just inventing something on the fly, and we're getting laughs, we're getting reactions, we're getting applause. It was like it was like getting plugged right into a sort of an endorphin dopamine. It's like a fire hose.
It's like a fire hose.
Yeah. You get to drink from the fire hose. Exactly. Yeah.
How long did you do the improv for?
I did it for. I did it. It was a big part of my life for like 10, 15 years.
Oh wow.
For a long time, and with the same group of people that I met in college. We started performing at college, and then left and kept doing our thing and refined our thing and started touring. We did shows all over Canada, and those people are my best friends now still, and we went on to write sketch comedy as well. And it was a big part of my life for a long time, especially in my like early and mid 20s.
Did you I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and we don't really do stuff together anymore, except for when a bunch of us are in Montreal together. We might do a show here and there, but I've continued to do improv here and there just because it's a thing I love doing, a thing I love watching as well.
Before your time and mine, but you had to be like SCTV for you. I mean, you had to watch that with all those legends, right? Like, did you watch this? That's not improv, but it's sketch.
It's sketch for sure. I was like, I know SNL more than I know SCTV, to be honest. But Kids in the Hall, that was my Canadian sketch comedy hit, right? That was very, I think, formative for me and for my gang, because their show was like mid 90s, and just kind of, they were doing something that was quite different and edgy. Like Kids in the Hall got a lot edgier than SNL,
of course,
ever did. They got weird,
super weird.
And that was definitely part of my growing up. SCTV, I guess I don't know it as well. I know, of course, the people who are on it, Eugene Levy and John Candy and and all them. But yeah, so so I started doing improv, and I also around the same time, thanks to my same buddy Matt, started doing theater at our college. I watched him in a show, and I was like, I can't believe kids my age are doing this like great imaginative, playful work with like a pretty decent production value for as far as college went. And so I started doing theater, and then theater and improv comedy were kind of my two things for a long time before I ever really got into screen acting. Yeah.
So you weren't doing any acting until you were in college?
Yeah.
So what did you I imagine you had something else in mind for the rest of your life. It wasn't always acting. What was that other thing?
Yeah, it was a vague idea, you know. I wasn't entirely sure. All I knew was that I liked writing. I thought when I was younger that I might be a writer when I got older, like an author. And that was a vague idea. And then I went into, you know, and I liked studying certain things. I was, you know, started in liberal arts, so doing, you know, history and religion and philosophy and kind of, stuff like that I was interested by, but it was pretty vague to me. What I was going to do with my whole life until I started doing theater and improv, but theater because maybe it was more structured and it had teachers involved. I got I got a sense that like, I might actually be good at this, and this might actually be something that I could pursue, you know. Not to say I knew at 18 that I could make a career out of it, but for the first time, it was like, oh, here is a thing that I love doing. I seem to be decent at it, and I could picture a path forward, you know. And that was huge. That was huge for me.
So did an agent come along, or did you get an agent to start taking auditions for screen stuff? Where's the transition there?
Eventually I did. Like for a while, as I say, it was indie theater in Montreal and improv and sketch stuff. And then, I eventually had a couple of agents and started auditioning for commercials and for kind of lower tier stuff. And I eventually, I didn't book anything for a long time, but I did enough auditions at a particular casting agency that they asked me to come in and help out with some auditions. Because, you know, whenever you're doing an audition, you as the actor who's auditioning, you're reading your lines, and then you have a reader who's doing the replies, you know, the other lines. And so I would sometimes get brought in to be the reader at auditions, which was a great experience because I could kind of see things from the other side. You know, I'd be in the room after the actors left, and the casting people would talk about the actor, and I could be in that atmosphere without the stress of feeling like I'm trying to get a job. You know, I'm just like here as part of the team to do my work and read the lines. And it was thanks to that job that I got my first on-screen gig, because I was reading for a movie. I was reading, you know, all the other lines for this movie that was casting in Montreal, and the director was there for some of the auditions, and eventually he said something. I was there when he said it. He was like, maybe we could get Dan in there somewhere. Maybe we can get him a little part, you know. And I was like, oh, me? And so it led to me being like, I forget the name of the role, but I was someone at a control board in the movie Death Race 3000.
Is this Hennessy Tech? Is the role of Hennessy Tech?
There you go.
In Death Race.
The role of Hennessy Tech.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, you know, we all,
Race.
yeah, of course. You also voice different characters in 4 or 5 Assassin's Creed games, correct?
Yeah.
So what is
totally.
that? Is it a thing where, especially when they're making these games, it's like they know you're going to do a good job, and so they bring you back to do, like, because it's not like you were a recurring character in Assassin's Creed. You voiced different roles in all of these Assassin's Creed games. Is it just like a callback where it's like, hey, Dan, we need you to come do some fill-in work, or what is that?
Well, the first thing I did for Ubisoft, the first Assassin's Creed game that I did, it was for I auditioned to play the main character,
Oh.
the player character in the game, and so that was like usually for the bigger roles in video games. Now it's an audition process pretty similar to a film or TV role, and so that was a role that I auditioned for many times over the course of many months because video game production stretches out in a way that film and TV doesn't. And eventually I got the part. So I actually played in Assassin's Creed Unity. I played the controllable
The
player
lead.
character.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Which was such a blast. So much fun to do because it was a lot of motion capture. So you're wearing these, I'm sure you've seen
Yeah.
pictures of it, people in the like
Oh,
black,
you're actually wearing the suit doing all the movements too.
Yeah, while doing a certain amount of the movements, I wasn't doing the crazy stunt stuff, you know. I was doing, but there's all these scenes. It's like a very cinematic kind of game, you know. So there's all these cut scenes and all the stuff that was with the character speaking. Yeah, that was me, and like I'd do these scenes where it was moving around this big space with there's all these cameras everywhere, but it's kind of just a giant empty warehouse kind of space. And you are mostly just imagining what you're seeing, as an actor. With some things are physical, like they're going to give you like, okay, here's a foam sword, and here's like a table for you to shove the guy up against, and the rest of it you're just imagining. So it's kind of like theater and improv in that way. And that was so much fun to work on that game. And I worked on it for a good long while because it takes a while to make these things. And then after that, sometimes because they knew me, they bring me back and I do some kind of smaller bits for them. But my main thing with Ubisoft was like a year working on Assassin's Creed Unity.
That's fantastic.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was very cool. Yeah.
Who would have thought?
And I have a friend who's a big gamer, and he told me once the game came out, he's like, man, it's so weird. Like I've heard you die so many times this week. And I'm like, you've got to protect me. My life is in your hands,
No kidding.
But it's like, because a big part of those video games is you have to, as an actor, you got to record yourself doing all these like pain sounds,
Yeah. Like imagine you're getting stabbed
like
in the
light
abdomen.
punch.
Now stabbed in the
Sure,
neck.
yeah, exactly. A bit more spittle on that one.
Yeah.
Please,
All right, cut, Dan.
Yeah.
This is the abdomen. We're gonna really need you to kick it up a notch. All right, buddy. Yeah.
So you said you worked on that project for a year. Were you able to do other stuff during
Oh yeah, it's
okay.
it was like a year just here and there,
Okay.
because it's not like a movie that shoots for a month or two straight.
Right.
It was like you'd work on it for a week, and then you'd have a few weeks off, and then you'd work for 3 days, and then you'd have a month off, and then you'd work for 2 weeks straight. Whatever. It was all scattered.
Yeah, got it.
That's not for a year to have that kind of that you're getting that income as actors. Like every time we interview somebody, it's
huge.
always this early on, I'm getting all these auditions and I just am looking for one job to pay the bills, and to have something for a year, that's a big deal for a young actor.
Yeah.
Oh, it was huge. That was my first kind of long gig, and it was wonderful to have, and it really gave me some stability. And then my first recurring job that I had, which really kind of changed my life, was actually The Good Witch for Hallmark. That was the first.
Wow.
First time I had a regular role where I knew I'm going to be working for the next 5 months or whatever, and that's kind of the holy grail for an actor, just a regular job.
Did they film
regular
Did they film The Good Witch in Montreal, or did you go to Vancouver or Toronto or somewhere?
Toronto.
Okay.
Toronto.
I got you.
I'm from Montreal, but then I lived for about 10 years around Toronto, so a lot of the stuff I've done has been in Toronto.
I got you. And you were also on Rain for 18 episodes on the CW and The Good Witch roughly at the same time.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, they actually shot at the same studio next door to each other.
Oh, wow.
What in the world was that like, to go from The Good Witch, which they don't even say she's a witch. That's what I've heard, at least. That's the rumor.
We knew that going
around.
into this, actually.
That's
We
what
talk about that
I
all
learned
the
stuff
time.
all the time.
Yeah.
But that's weird. And then go to that to the CW's take on Mary Stuart's, and you played a Stewart in that. You played James Stewart, so a fairly big role.
Yeah. For sure.
Well,
Exactly.
can
From
you-
one show where they don't even say witch to the other show where there are literally witches being burned alive.
That's right.
You know?
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It was great. It was great. I think that I think a lot of actors appreciate being able to do different sorts of things, you know, and to swing from one genre to another is actually really enjoyable and satisfying in a way, you know. So I'd been working on Good Witch for a couple of years, and I knew about Rain because Rain shot right next door to us. So we'd occasionally see like the actors from Rain in their costumes and stuff, you know? And I was like, oh, that looks like fun. And then when I auditioned for it, find out I got the part. I was still finishing up one season of Good Witch, and I started watching Rain to get a sense of it. And I remember my wife and I watched the first episode, and we were like, "This show is really not for us. I guess we should watch a little bit more just to get into that world." Watched the second episode, and I was like, "Okay, well, I'll watch a third episode." And I watched the third episode, and we were both like, "We're in. We're invested. We love this show." And I watched enough of it that when I then next saw one of the Rain actors walking to their set while I was walking to my set, I got like starstruck, you know. I texted my wife and I was like, I just saw Bash going into the studio, you know. I'm like, how am I going to work with them now? I'm so starstruck. Anyway,
can you sign
but
my
it
shirt,
was,
Bash? Can you sign it?
Yeah. But Rain was so much fun to work on. What a cool show, because you know any kind of period thing is really fun because it's really playing dress up. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And Rain was a crazy show. It was really like melodramatic in a really fun way. Every episode seemed to be about like the fate of the nation hangs in the balance, and there's always someone getting betrayed and someone getting imprisoned and someone killing someone. It was like, yeah, such a swing, such a 180 from The Good Witch. Yeah, I mean, I got to, you know, wear furs and have a sword and speak with an accent. So it was a lot of fun.
I mean, come on.
It's interesting you mentioned being starstruck, because I was actually going to ask a question in that same realm. You had a 3-episode arc on Designated Survivor with Kiefer.
Which Brand
I love
loves.
Kiefer. I would have been starstruck seeing Kiefer. But what have you? What's the thing that you've done with the biggest name that you are most like? You walk on set and you're just like, I can't believe that I am here right now.
Yeah. Okay, so I did a couple scenes in a movie with Bruce Willis once.
Boy.
And that was definitely, I mean, that's not even subjective starstruckness. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like he's a global superstar, right?
Wow.
And so like, you're like, that's Bruce Willis. And I remember I had a small part. And when you're on set, you kind of have to know where you stand in the hierarchy of the set. You know what I'm saying? Like, I knew that this wasn't my place to like collaborate or come up with cool ideas or make jokes. Like, not really. You know, I'm just here to be told where to go. But still, maybe this is the smart ass in me. I remember one day like cracking some kind of joke. And he just looked at me in the most deadpan Bruce Willis way. And he didn't have to say a thing. Him just turning and looking at me. I'm like, I just ran away with my tail between my legs, you know? And then like 2 weeks later, I had another day. It was like just a couple days on this movie spread apart. And I was doing this bit where we like, me and another guy like handcuff Willis and like lead him away, you know, and we're told to like lead him to this car, and you know, you're given a very direct line of you walk from here to here. And then after 1 or 2 takes, I was like, it seemed to me from the way we were leading him to the car that we were going to like be bringing him to the driver's side door. Like we were going to be letting the prisoner drive. And I said that after a couple takes, I was like, it's like, we're going to let you drive. And he actually like chuckled. And I'm like, oh my God, yeah, I did it.
You did it.
I made Bruce Willis laugh. I did it. I can retire now.
Dude, it's the little things. I love it. That's
you got
a
them
big
on your
deal.
side.
Yeah.
Get them on your side too, and that's the key. After a tough day at the office,
tough
it's always
day.
good to come back.
To come
and-
back and swing again at
Yeah,
all,
that's
Dan.
big.
I just said, I mean, you came out swinging and just missed, and then you win again.
It's an improv pro right there.
Man, what a guy! Yeah, that's right. He doesn't mind. He doesn't mind bombing.
No.
He didn't mind bombing. It's just another night at the
You've got
office.
You've got to.
That's fantastic. Before I talk about accents and you and Paris and Wine and Romance, how did you get the Good Witch and how did that change your relationship with Hallmark? Because at what point did it become when we talk to a lot of these actors, and after a while with Hallmark, it becomes an offer situation. So like it's you audition, and then at some point it's like, Dan, we got a movie for you. Like, is that where that happened? You got on Good Witch and after 25 episodes, or did you have to do a couple movies first?
So no, I did Good Witch first. That was my first thing with Hallmark. And yeah, I auditioned for that. It's funny, sometimes audition processes are really drawn out, and sometimes they can be really quick, and sometimes it doesn't make sense why they are short or long. I just did one audition for Good Witch, and I remember the director, who was Craig Price, who directed a lot of the Good Witch. I just remember him saying in the audition, "Okay, take that scene again and just do it just a little bit more emotional." And that's a real broad term, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Emotional. Wait, what does that mean exactly?
Quite enough.
And yeah. And so I did the scene again, and obviously, I understood his take on emotion. I got the parts, worked with him a lot, love him. Hallmark's got a particular kind of, it's a genre, right? It's fair to say that it's its own genre, and it's like light family drama, if you want, but it's light and it's positive. And I think I learned on set, watched the pros, Catherine Bell and Jamie Denton that I was working with, watched them doing their thing, and they're so good at it. And yeah, I did that for a couple of years, and then ended up, like, because we were talking about, I got onto Rain, and so I sort of, my storyline on Good Witch kind of came to an end. I didn't exactly like leave it. I just started doing less on Good Witch, started doing more on Rain.
Did the witch
And
make
then
you
for a while-
disappear?
Was it
Did
a
the witch
spell
was
or
it
a
a
potion or
spell?
something?
Anything like that?
It was a little, I mean, you guys, you got to watch it. It was a little tinkling of wind chimes in the background. And then I just kind of realized, like, oh yeah, I know what I need to do now.
Go be on Rain.
That's yeah. And then I just didn't. Yeah, for a couple of years after that, I was working on other stuff.
The Bold Type,
then,
you were on that for 30 episodes almost.
Yes.
I mean, come on.
Yes, wonderful show. I love that. But then Hallmark, just hadn't heard from them in a while until I got an email from my agency asking me to send in a video of myself speaking French.
Yep.
And I think they said it's something to do with Hallmark. There was no other directions given, and so I wasn't told what to say or anything. Just a video of yourself speaking French. I speak French. I'm from Montreal.
Yeah.
I speak my kind of Québécois French, and I wasn't trying to sound like anything else. I was just like, I just basically shot a video saying, like, hi, I'm Dan Jeannotte, I'm from Montreal, but in French. And then a couple of weeks after that, I found out I got an offer to make this movie called, it ended up being called Paris, Wine and Romance. And what's funny is that in that movie, I play a French guy,
That's right.
from Paris.
Yes.
And I'm doing the movie in English, but with a Parisian accent. Doing a movie in English with a Parisian accent is very different than speaking Québécois French. Those are like two entirely different things. Nobody asked me if I knew how to do a Parisian accent while speaking English. I just had to figure it out. And, but on the set, like, nobody else spoke French, so I was kind of the expert.
Well, what's wild about that though is do you ever, I don't know how much Hallmark you watch, and you don't have to answer that question, but sometimes they have someone speaking French or British or another nation they've made up for a royal movie who is clearly just Canadian, not from Montreal, just good old fashioned Canadian that speaks English only and is doing an accent. And whereas when we watched Paris, Wine, and Romance, there's some interesting things about the business and what they decided to do there. And I don't remember all of them because that was 600 movies ago. But like for us down here in the good old USA, like you pass as French. Like we don't know the difference between the Quebec
Right.
French and the France French.
Well, I didn't sound Quebec. I sounded Parisian in the movie.
Yeah.
But good. I'm glad that it worked. And yes, being from a French province, I also had my own, we have our own take on French people and the Parisian accent, so it was already something I could sort of do like in a teasing, joking way, let's say. And now I just had to learn how to do it in a legit way and not making fun of it. I'm trying to do it honestly,
Yeah. Did you, I don't remember, do you have an accent in the Royal Nanny? British? Do you have to do?
Yeah, British.
Yeah. How was that
British.
in comparison? Harder, easier?
Oh, easier. I've done British accents now in a ton of things, and it's it's a lot easier. The French was something that I had to really think about, practice every line, over and over again to make sure it sounded right to my ears, But British now, I've done it so much that it's almost second nature to me now.
In between Paris, Wine, and Romance and Royal Nanny, you did a few like Hallmark adjacent movies that are like similar in formula and all that stuff, but not for Hallmark. Is there any difference between those sets and movies that are going to be created for the Hallmark channel? Is there any difference, or since there's so much overlap with production companies and sometimes you don't even know if it's going to land on Hallmark, it all kind of is about the same?
That's an interesting question. They're pretty similar, but as you say, sometimes, you make something before it's sold.
Mm-hmm.
Those are, I think they call those acquisitions. Like we're making a movie and we don't know where it's going to get aired eventually. And sometimes they do get bought by Hallmark or by Lifetime or whatever it might be. So there's not a huge difference, except that I'd say, the producers on the smaller ones can be might be a bit more hands-on. This is the way that they see things going. Whereas the producers for Hallmark, because they're working for Hallmark, there's kind of a general party line. You know what I mean? Like this is what we're trying to get across in general. So the producers, I loved all the producers I've worked with on Hallmark movies. They are to a certain extent trying to do what they know the network is after.
Right.
There might be a bit more, personal, idiosyncratic touches maybe on these smaller ones, but they're very similar in terms of short
15-day shoots. Yeah.
Shooting. Exactly. 15 or 14 or 13-day shoots. And some of these I've done a lot of those kind of, adjacent ones, as you say, those were all in Canada that I filmed them. They're kind of similar, except they have lower budgets. So that comes across in various ways on set. Just kind of, you can, do more on these Hallmark movies. There'll be more extras and there'll be more beautiful costumes,
better crafty,
more interesting locations.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you, when you were shooting The Good Witch, since it's a Hallmark television show, was it like 7 days for an episode versus 14? Like it's about half the length of a movie. Is that what it was? Or would you guys just shoot 3 or 4 or 5 in a row and then go home and come back? How did that work with Hallmark?
Yeah, that's a good question. That was a long time ago now that I was shooting Good Witch, but it would be more. No, it's definitely not a week to shoot an episode. It's longer than that.
Oh wow!
Because the episodes are of Good Witch. That was an hour-long show, right. So maybe 45 minutes or whatever with ads. But I'm guessing it's probably 2.5 weeks to shoot an episode usually.
Wow, so about the same amount of time to shoot a movie.
Yeah, but different because the hours on the show would generally be more relaxed. It's like more intense on these shoots. You got to get more stuff done quickly. But on a show, you've got your studio, you own that, or you're renting that space. You've got it for a long stretch of time. There's a bit more wiggle room. You can take a little bit longer to get the scenes right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or sometimes with the movies, you just have to. Everyone is there and doing their best, and then at a certain point, you just have to move on to the next scene. But so yeah, on the show, I remember like on most TV shows, there's more sitting around for an actor than on these movies. There's less sitting around because you're really just like go. Right?
That makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
You also recently have done some Star Trek, which is really awesome. What is it like being dropped in such a world, like such a fandom?
Strange new worlds, even.
You might even say that. Like, there's not many worlds out there like Star Trek that have such a fandom that have been going on for so long now. Were you nervous going into that? Like, I don't want to goof this up.
Oh yeah, totally, 100%. It was. Yeah, I'd say it was the most nervous I'd been starting on a project in a really long time.
Since Bruce
Ever since
Willis.
I kind of found
Bruce Willis improv debacle.
Yeah. So, so I called him up for some advice. No, but I think ever since I kind of found my sea legs when it comes to screen shooting, I've been decently confident starting something new. There's always a bit of nerves. Will I get along with everybody and everything? But Star Trek was definitely a different level because, as you say, there's kind of nothing like it. That it is, an intellectual property, a world that has such history to it. So many episodes and movies. So many people love it so much. There's such lore attached to it all, and I just wanted to, just very much wanted to do it right, like not mess it up for Star Trek. I didn't want to break Star Trek, and I wanted also to feel like, like I could belong to this world, like that I could be my character and could be a part of this world, that it made sense. I wanted to keep being on the show. And so just wanted to make sure I didn't mess it up. It was wild. Finding out that I got the part blew my mind. And then my first day of shooting was in the middle of the pandemic. And so it was both my first day of work in more than a year and my first time around a lot of people in like almost as long, so it was like nerve-wracking on a few fronts. Like, do I remember how to act? Like, how does this go again? And am I gonna bring home an infectious disease to my family when I'm done? And then literally the first scene that I did, my first take, I was in the turbo lift, walking onto the bridge of the Enterprise.
Wow.
And it was crazy. The turbo lift is like a physical part of the set, and when the door closes, you're just in the lift. There's nothing else around you. So I had a moment where the doors closed, and I'm all alone inside this Enterprise turbo lift, and I'm like, I'm about to step onto the bridge of the Enterprise.
That's right.
And what's great is that in the scene the character was like impressed to be there. You know what I mean? I didn't have to stroll on looking like I owned the place. I got to walk in and be like, whoa. I think actually maybe my first line is whoa. Or I am.
Yeah, no, not a lot of acting needed there. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just really that was one of those moments where I really am like, take a moment here and appreciate how wild your life is and how lucky you are and how cool it is that you get to do this. Yeah, it's so fantastic to get to work on that show and to get to be a part of that world, as you say, that's got such a fandom associated with it. The people have been wonderful. The people I work with are so cool. The crew is amazing. The show, I think, is so good. Like, I was already a Star Trek fan, not like a hardcore Trekkie, but watched Next Generation growing up and Voyager and Deep Space Nine, and I was a fan. And I watched this, what we've made now with Strange New Worlds, and I'm like, I don't know. I think I need someone else to verify this, but I think this holds up,
Okay.
And the show's been super well received.
Okay.
It's been like very well received by the fans and by critics. It's great. It's a fun show. It looks cool. It's got a great energy to it, and they're leaning into that whole episodic thing. So every episode is kind of a whole new story.
Oh, cool.
There's some through lines, but it's going back to that original series thing of like, you can just tune in to any one episode and you can follow what's going on because they're all kind of self-contained stories to a certain extent. And with our show, it's meant that they're leaning into the genre stuff. So like one episode will be like a crazy alien horror show episode, scary, intense, and then the next episode is like a goofy body swap comedy.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then the next episode is like a fantasy thing where we're inside a fairy tale. It's
wow.
Yeah,
Next
super
Generation
fun to play.
did that really well. That was the one that I always held up as the one that I would watch. I was not a big like Trekker, but I would watch that show, and that was the one that I would be like, they with Data and Picard and Riker, and they could switch all these. It was great. So I got to check it out.
Yeah.
Then. I've not watched a Star Trek show in a long time. Is there a chance there'll be more Dan Jeannotte on that show, or is that spoiling something?
Yeah. I mean, no, yeah. I can say that. I'm allowed to say that. Yeah, we're working on season 3 right now.
I love
Hey.
it. I love it.
Fantastic.
Dude, congrats. Absolutely. Well, we know you were in Our Christmas Mural, but also you've got Sensibility coming out here this weekend.
Pride and Prejudice.
It is
Yes.
not.
It
is not.
Nice try.
Jane Austen wrote 6 books.
Yeah.
And part of a 7th. Is that correct? Yeah. So let's honor all of them individually. It feels like we've spent most of Jane Austen month on Pride and Prejudice, but we're not on it anymore.
No.
We're on to Sense and Sensibility. Are we going to hear?
And this is the only one of the 4 Jane Austen movies for February that, from my understanding, is just the title.
Straight
adaptation. Straight up. So tell us about that. Like, this is, I'm sure, unlike any Hallmark project you've ever done. It's a period piece. It's
are we going to hear Dan Jeannotte British accents?
Yeah. What are we getting into here?
Yeah, it is. It's unlike anything I think Hallmark has done at all, because it's a straight adaptation of a hugely well-known and beloved book, and there's no gimmick to it. It's not about like a person from the future going into Jane Austen's world, or it's not about the storyline of a Jane Austen novel happening to someone in contemporary times. It's really just the story as it is. And I couldn't believe it, actually. I needed to be, before I started the movie, when I found out, that they wanted to do this, they wanted me to be a part of it, I had to kind of confirm several times. So it's an actual straight adaptation. Like, I'm not like some bro from small town, America/Canada who has fallen into somebody's Jane Austen fever dream. No, I'm really like actually just playing Edward Ferrars, a love interest of one of the characters in the real Jane Austen story.
The bit is there's no bit. It's crazy.
It's an 83-minute version of Sense and Sensibility. That's terrifying, right?
Yeah.
An hour and 23 minutes for that book and that movie?
You mean because there's so much
Yeah,
in the book?
it's to narrow it down to 83 minutes. I mean, as an actor, you got to like make the most of every second of that, right? Not terrifying for me to watch.
Absolutely.
Don't hear it. Wait a minute. That's not what I was saying. I got some
like
looks
terrifying
around
to spend 83
here.
minutes.
No.
Yeah,
We've already
to
watched some
adapt
of
it,
those.
sure.
That's not what I'm worried about here. It's 83 minutes is not a lot of time for the subject matter.
No, and that's absolutely, and that's kind of one of the unfortunate trade-offs of, I guess, any movie adaptation of a book. You're never going to have the time to develop everything, every plot line, and every character. So you're right. As an actor, all you can do is just kind of try to infuse as much of the story as you can into the small moments you have on screen. I think that the writer of the adaptation and our director and our editor have done a very nice job of condensing it. It's for sure, for anyone who knows the novel, of course there are things that are either glossed over or just kind of cut, just aren't in there. But really the meat of it, all the main characters and their main dilemmas, it's all there. And it's lovely. I actually just watched it last night, and I think it turned out beautifully. And one of the amazing things about it is that Hallmark was really invested in making it as accurate to the time as possible when it comes to the costumes, when it comes to the decor. So it looks gorgeous. The costumes are amazing. Our sets, our locations were beautiful. And it's Hallmarkified in a way, because we're trying to make a story that's uplifting, like a good Hallmark movie should be. And the real novel is more complex than that. It's people get married at the end of it, but there's, I think, a bit more was this the right thing for everyone? Did everyone do the right thing? But our version is a bit more like, yes,
of
it's
course,
a happy ending. I think audiences just are in for a treat. Hallmark fans are in for a treat, because to me, it feels like something that's very much in the world of Hallmark, but it's, a step in an interesting direction. And really, Jane Austen is, not to oversimplify everything that she accomplished, but in a way, our ideas about romantic comedies kind of stem from the comedy of manners that she was writing back then, and how she put women at the forefront of her stories. When she wrote Sense and Sensibility, it was her first novel, and it wasn't even, she had to write it anonymously when it was published. It was Sense and Sensibility by a lady. That's how it was written. And that blows my mind. Yeah. And then eventually in her life, I think she gained enough recognition to kind of out herself as an author. But it's it kind of all, in a way, like Hallmark sort of stretches back to Austen, right? So I think it's amazing that they're going for that now.
I love it.
Yeah.
Now, knowing that you're going into this and you're going to do a British accent, do you just go, I did it in the Nanny movie, I'm good to go? Or do you go into this and go, I want to create
the perfect early 19th century?
Like, how much work did you put into
status of British? That like there's a certain British status of Austen movies where that is important. Is that crossing your mind?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I know for sure I can't just do exactly the same accent and delivery that I've done for contemporary movies. In a way, doing a kind of, Regency era or whatever, Edwardian era aristocratic kind of character is almost easier to do the accent, because it's a bit more of that, high, that snooty kind of well-spoken character. I did prepare for it by, one of the things I was doing, I was reading the novel. I was also listening to an audiobook version, an audiobook adaptation of the novel. And I rewatched the 1995 Emma Thompson
version, of course.
Version. Yeah. And so listening to the audiobook and watching that movie helped get me into the cadence and the way of speaking. And it's kind of a real pleasure for me actually to speak that way in that accent. And yeah, I would run my lines and just remember to make myself more reserved, and not just from the time period, but also my character is pretty reserved. And so it was a lot of fun to think about how would this guy speak back then. And then once we were all together, of course, as the whole cast together and running our lines, we kind of, you want to match each other. You want to elevate each other and be all kind of sounding like we're from the same world. So that helped too, to actually be with everybody,
Well, we're looking forward to hearing
it's
it.
great.
Yeah,
it's great fun.
can't
Looking
wait.
forward to hearing it.
Sounds like he's a man of many talents, many accents. I'm excited to see
this
what
Saturday,
Dan's-
Sensibility. And he was so kind because he said he'd love to do the entire rapid fire round with that accent.
He's
going
to do the
Oh my
entire
God.
He said, and it was
rapid
super,
fire round
it was
with
super
the accents.
kind of him.
That's
So,
unbelievable. He sent us that. He texted us in a
yeah,
group
it was
text
his idea.
and was like, "Guys, I have this idea."
Sound might have cut out when I
Oh.
said that, but it's true.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I will absolutely engage in your frivolities with the appropriate accent.
Man,
Thank
if
you.
This
so
is
wish.
so exciting.
My first question is really going to hit home for the people listening to the podcast. There's a clock behind you that is doing the thing where it kind of
Where
goes
it
like
clocks.
this. It hasn't moved. The actual hands themselves. What's up with that?
Are you saying that? Are you saying that throughout our interview you've been watching the clock?
You've been
I-
like
so
a child
bored by
who can't
one.
No,
wait
no,
to
no,
be
no, no, no.
Brandon hates women and is bored by our guests.
I am not bored of Dan Janet at all. What I'm saying,
Don't do that to my name.
what I'm
The
saying,
Giannotte family is going to be so upset at you.
but what I'm saying is, I noticed it at first, and I was like, "Oh, the time's wrong." And then I noticed that the time maintained its wrong spot for the duration of the interview, despite the ticking of the clock.
Yeah. So you want an answer for that? It's art.
Oh,
I love it. It's a great answer.
love that.
That's the easy
beautiful.
rapid fire.
I hadn't noticed that clock is not telling the right time until you.
It's a
pointed
beautiful
it out.
piece.
Wow,
It's a
but
beautiful
it's still
piece.
clocking somehow.
It's a beautiful piece.
Dan, you mentioned Ace Ventura. Jim Carrey is a fellow Canadian. I want to know your favorite Jim Carrey movie of all time.
Oh my God! I mean, honestly, Eternal Sunshine of the
So
Spotless
good.
Mind.
It's so freaking good.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Truman Show and
I love
Eternal
Truman
Sunshine. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Whew.
Truman Show too. Yeah, that one is up there. That was his peak. Those were like right around the same time, right?
Yep.
Yeah, like
I mean,
incredible.
come on.
Everybody who
Yeah.
watches the Truman Show has a moment after watching it where they go, "Is it? Is that me? Am I?"
That's
Is
right.
it?"
Play
It's
those
just a
myths
little
as a cave.
second. It's just a little second where you're like,
That movie is also timeless. Like
Yeah, so
I used to
good.
teach a film class in high school, and high school kids would literally be like, they would watch that movie. By the end of it, they're just on the edge of their seats, like it is still the 1990s. It is unbelievable.
that was one of the movies where back when I had cable, if it was ever on, I would watch it.
Peter Weir
Yeah.
directing. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Ed Harris
Oh.
just freaking crushing it.
It was like
Unbelievable.
always on TBS somehow. I don't know how it happened. It was just always on.
So good.
Anyway,
Sorry.
with Sweeter Than Chocolate, there's chocolate in that movie. Do you have a go-to type of chocolate? I'm a milk chocolate boy. I know people like the dark. I know people like the sea salt. Some people get weird with like orange and stuff. Do you have a go-to chocolate?
Peanut butter and chocolate, like Reese's Pieces.
Oh,
yeah.
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 Yeah, that's the go-to.
We love a good Reese's.
We love
around
a
I'm
good
here.
trying to be healthier these days, and
Stop
I'm like,
it.
I got to get myself
Stop
some
it.
dark chocolate.
You can't talk to the two of us and say that out loud. That's insulting to both of us. So I just don't want to
We
hear
can all do it. We can all do it if we try.
Yeah, we'll all
okay?
do it together. Of course. We all have the same amount to go.
So we get the Reese's dark chocolate.
We get Reese's dark chocolate
Got it.
cups.
They make that?
Down here in the South, Dan, we got
Don't put it
Reese's-
past us.
We got Reese's with pretzels, Reese's with potato chips, Reese's with Reese's Pieces inside of them. We got everything you could possibly imagine.
Reese's dark chocolate. It's ready to
Yes,
go.
with
We just
Reese's
Googled
dark
it.
chocolate cups. Yeah, easy.
In Canada as well?
Great.
It's organic.
Organic.
Oh, it's organic.
Nothing to do with Canada.
Nothing to do
Thank
with
you.
Canada.
Producer Aaron and
No.
Bran for
Canada
here.
wouldn't
Dan, are you in Montreal or are you in Toronto right now? Where are you?
Montreal.
Montreal. All right. The best meal that in your neck of the woods in Montreal that I probably couldn't find down here in South Carolina where I am.
Okay, you want to go to the best meal or the best restaurant?
Either way, restaurant or meal, you pick. I've never been to Montreal.
I'm gonna say best restaurant. Okay.
Okay.
Pied de Cochon.
Okay.
Which means pig's foot. It is an incredible restaurant in Montreal that makes kind of, I guess you'd call it comfort food, but like really rich, incredibly well done. It's a place that you usually need like, a reservation to get into. But if you're ever in Montreal, just walk past it, because I've gotten in before just by walking by and being like, hey, do you have any tables? And they're like, sure, we can fit you in right here. It's incredibly good. Au pied de cochon, or just pied de cochon? Pied de cochon. Pig's foot. It's the best.
I love
Go
it,
there.
man.
Have you ever had a paranormal experience? It could be a UFO sighting, it could be a ghost, it could be seeing a Bigfoot or a Pigfoot. Any of those. And if so, would you be willing to share that experience with us?
Oh man, I wish I had. I have not had anything that I would consider a supernatural experience, and I feel like I'm like missing out, like when people talk to me about their times where they like felt an energy in a room or whatever, I'm like, that sounds scary, but also I'm jealous.
I feel like this has been pretty special, though. This has been special.
Paranormal, though. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe the clock part.
I mean, I don't know.
I have felt
an energy. I
an
don't
energy.
see you guys. You're just kind of voices in my head right now. So,
well, it's just yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. Dan, I feel like the world's been missing out on you in a comedy. I don't see a lot of that on the filmography. And so it's just less of a question and more just me. If it's something you want to do, I can't imagine you did improv for years that you wouldn't want to be a part of a comedy. Like, can you just pitch me on a comedy you'd like to be a part of, or why someone should hire you? Because sometimes you get typecast as the Assassin's Creed Hallmark guy, and you know what I mean?
Right.
And so just pitch me on Dan Jeannotte, comedy lead or comedy sidekick in a movie.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely do want to do comedies. And so what I want to pitch is a kind of like, if I play, how about I play like a secret agent kind of character who is, on the surface, maybe, they make me look good, right? I got like good hair and like cool
Unlike
suits
now where you look like just trash, Dan.
Okay. Just imagine, okay, like if that I've got a team of stylists working on me.
Around the clock.
I look the part.
Yep.
I look the part of a James Bond kind of character, but actually am like just crippled with self-doubt. And like am really like cowardly, or just don't think I can do it.
I love it.
And I need like my sidekick, I picture the person who's like in my ear, like at mission control, who's like, they've got to be my like hype person and my like therapist and my counselor. And like, they tell me what to say in these situations, because I'm actually kind of an idiot, It's
like a James Bond Cyrano de Bergerac situation. I love that.
Fantastic.
That's a great pitch. If you're listening, or maybe if we're listening, we should write that movie. I love that. That's a great idea. Yeah. I'm here for it.
And I love it. Yeah. And I just like the idea of, because like you say, maybe sometimes you do get typecast, and like, I've been very lucky that I've been typecast to some extent as like, I don't know, like a love interest or whatever. I'm so blessed. It's so lucky. But I find it funny to take a kind of look, take an idea that people might have about who you are and subvert it, like maybe he looks cool, but actually he's a goof. He's an idiot. He's no good at what he's doing, That's what I want. I don't want to do that kind of
If only there was a publicist for Hallmark on the line that could help make that happen. Taylor, look at you. We did it, everybody. Congratulations to us. Go ahead, Dan.
Charity. Every time we have somebody on, we try to bring a little joy. That's what we do here at Deck the Hallmark. Dan, a charity of your choice. We'd love to contribute and encourage others to contribute as well. What do you got for us?
I love that. That's so fantastic. I would love it if you guys would make a donation to the MS Society of Canada, the Multiple Sclerosis Society of Canada. They do great work at research into this disease that affects a lot of people that I know actually. MS Society of Canada, that'd be wonderful.
Fantastic. Would love to make
Thank
a
you,
donation and would encourage you to do the same.
Absolutely. Sense and Sensibility this Saturday, Hallmark Channel. Check it out and come into a comedy theater near you soon. Dan as well. Dan, thank you. That was weird. And until next time, may we be the first to wish you a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Deck the Hallmark's a Bramble Jam podcast. It's presented by Philo TV. It's produced by Brandon Gray and recorded live in Greenville, South Carolina. Set decor is by Plum at Haywood Mall. For more information on Deck the Hallmark, you can go to deckthehallmark.com. For more information on Bramble Jam Podcast Network, you can go to bramblejampodcast.com.